because you asked for him, world traveler, the man of the hour, who's racked up enough travel miles in the last 90 days to be able to travel anywhere he wants to in the state of Washington. He's back with us again. It's Brian White of My Tesla Weekend. Hey, Brian, great to have you back.
Hey, Randy, good to see you.
You've been out there, you've been out and about, you've been traveling everywhere.
I have. It was crazy. I went to Fully Charged in Farnborough, England. So I flew to London, and then we flew to Dublin, and then we flew out from Belfast to Amsterdam, had an overnight layover, got to show the boys our favorite Euro place, not a euphemism. And then when I got back the next day, I was down at the Vancouver Service Center for their big event with the Southwest Washington Owners Club. And then on Monday, I had to fly out. I got to fly out to the shareholder meeting. And what an absolute whirlwind of a month it has been.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to tap into Brian's brain, such as it is, and discuss with him how he's become even more enlightened over that 90-day period when he's been all over the world. This is Randy Kirk, and if you like having Brian on, hit the like button. That's the only way I'll know that you like him. And then also hit subscribe and notify, because you want to be notified about, because this is the first of 4 times I'm going to have Brian on over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks. So you're going to want to be notified, every time that he's on. And then, of course, he's got Patreon. He's got his own channel, My Tesla Weekend. You can follow him on Twitter. There's all these different places that you can follow Brian if you just can't get enough of him. And if that's not enough, Brian, I've heard tell that you actually have stepped over the edge, and you actually have another channel where you're a comedian.
Oh no, we're doing that. Yes, I got my first. I was ruined by YouTube because my first channel with my first real video was a success, and that gives you this impression that you can actually do a thing. And each video got less and less successful, to the point where I finally said, "This is it, baby. I'm going all in. This is my last hurrah." I made a movie, hired a crew for it. Everyone got paid. And I mean, everyone got paid. I was in the movie. I played 9 characters, and it fizzled. And that was the end of that. And then YouTube announced, "Oh, we're going to demonetize your channel if you don't get your watch time up." So I published 30 more videos and did not get my watch time up. Every time people would say, "I'm going to go in and watch all of them." And then you'd see the hours climbing up, and then YouTube would go, "Nah, that looks like bot activity," and knock it back down. Channel's demonetized, but yeah. And it's really hard to find. You could search 10K zebra, all one word, on YouTube, and it'll say, "No, you meant something else." And you have to go, "No, I meant that." And then it'll take you there. You could also search my name, Brian White, and find 5 million Brian Whites, which is also not helpful. So that's all terrible.
Yes. Well, okay, Brian. I'm glad that we got that out of the way. I'm very sorry for that history. I think I had a history with a busted channel as well, which I still don't understand what happened to that channel. But fortunately for both of us, our YouTube experience has changed now that we're in the Tesla world, and we're sort of almost possibly being able to pay for a few meals out of our experience, and that's a plus. Anyway, let's jump into what took place. I mean, okay, you've been out there, you've been to these shows, you've been down to the to shareholder meeting, you've glad-handed a bunch of people, you've backslapped a bunch of people, you've probably made a few people laugh. But what did you learn? Tell me what you learned.
The Fully Charged was an amazing event. They have these all over the world. They have them about once a month, really. And after you saw me at Fully Charged in San Diego, that's where we finally met in person for the first time. And I said, "I want to do another one of these. Which one should I go to?" They said, "Fully Charged in London. That's the one. It's the biggest." It was 3 days long. And my presentation was the first one on the first day. And now you've got 3 days to do whatever you want. So I looked at all the cars. I looked at all the companies. I interviewed a dozen different vendors from all kinds of different things. I talked to kind of everyone. And what I learned is in Europe, we have in the US a very different perception of what an electric car is. Specifically, it's a Tesla. In Europe, I would go to these panels, these discussions, and the question would always come up, what do you drive? What do you drive? And they were all, oh yeah, we're all EV. I have a Renault Zoe, my wife has a BYD, and everybody has something, but not everybody has a Tesla. In fact, it might be the most common one among the people there, but I really don't think it was. Everybody's got something. So what we learned is, and this is the biggest one, China isn't coming. China's already come. They're already there. We don't see them in the US because there's a 28% import tariff on Chinese-made cars. And you're like, isn't the Polestar Chinese? Yeah, they're paying the 28% tariff just to get into the market, which is bonkers. And it's why the car is not cost competitive. It's why it's not selling like hotcakes. If it was a third cheaper, a quarter cheaper, it would be a bestseller, which here it just isn't. It does all right numbers. So then you look at the market there. They've got BYD selling pretty good, pretty cheap cars. They're not the cheapest, they're not the best, but they're good. You've got MG, which is an old British brand, but it's a Chinese company now. They just bought the name, making pretty good, pretty compelling cars. You've got Aura, which is made by Great Wall Motors. Give me a more Chinese sounding name than that. Their car has shorter range, but it's much cheaper. They've got the Honda Fit, which we don't see because the range is too short for the US market. I asked at Lars's panel, they were talking about the Chinese cars. And Elliot is fully charged man in Shanghai. And I asked him, how many Chinese companies can we expect to see exporting EVs over the next 3 years? And he said, forget 3 years. This year, we expect a lot. And I'm like, well, what's a lot? So Robert Llewellyn steps in, Bobby Lou steps in and says, I can tell you that we have been approached by Chinese manufacturers who wish to debut their cars at our shows. And I can tell you that by the end of this year, you will see 10 new Chinese companies enter the European market. 10.
In addition
to ones that are there now. And all of us are like, Volkswagen is in trouble. I don't know if they know it, but they're in trouble. The other big takeaway, a gentleman got up to the mic and asked, we see all these $15,000 cars, they get here and they're $50,000. What happened? And they had an answer. The first part of the answer is, we don't want to sell cars. They don't want to sell cars in any version other than loaded. We don't want to be a budget company. We want to be a good company. Yeah, we could import something that's cheap and just crushes the market, but we would then everyone would have in their mind Chinese equals trash. And they don't want that. They want to stay up market. And why would they, when they are already supply constrained, just sell them the premium one? And part of it is they're going to then mark it up to market value. If everyone's selling at 50,000, we don't need to sell at 40. We can sell at 48. We can sell at 47 and use that margin to expand our market, to come to events like Fully Charged and put on big presentations, bring out cars, do test drives. And that's what they're doing. So, yeah, China, if you're a car manufacturer and you're not worried about China, you need to be fired.
And that's just China. I've continually said that we also not worried about, but we definitely have South Korea. Kia Hyundai is definitely in the game. I feel them being in the top 4 or 5 of the makers at the end of the decade. So between South Korea and China, serious bunch of folks.
So Kia is already has factories in India. Not for EVs, but for gasoline cars. If they can make an affordable entry-level EV, they can build it in India.
Yeah.
They could put LFP batteries in it, so all of the battery supplies would be domestic to India. But India's already now has 10 lithium ion battery companies, manufacturers, and they've got more coming. If Hyundai, because the import taxes to India on all foreign cars starts at 100%. That's why everybody wants to build a factory there. Now, in India. And as a result, Hyundai and Kia are both in, I think, the top 5 auto manufacturers in India. Still very low numbers, but India today is what China was 20 years ago. And if you could have gotten into China 20 years ago, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So this is,
I think there's a good chance that India will leapfrog China because it's more free.
It's
more
tough
free.
to say.
Yeah. And you also have a very strong work ethic. I don't know. I think there's a good chance that, and they're also gonna. It looks like they're serious about electrification. They've just announced the other day that they're basically going to start rolling out the solar and the wind and the batteries in big numbers. So if they could get electrified, if they could get Tesla as just, they're in serious talks now with India, apparently on the last 3-4 days, super serious talks. If Tesla would put a plan in there, I mean, these guys could be on a roll.
So I will join you in that speculation. Now, I don't necessarily think that they will leapfrog past China, but here's a couple ways they could. They have over 3,500 engineering colleges. And you've met, I am sure we all have, some very talented Indian engineers.
Yes.
Because they end up all over the world in specialized roles doing all kinds of very specific engineering tasks. The other reason is legacy infrastructure is costly and difficult to replace. So you look at a place like Africa, there are whole villages that never got phone lines, and they never will because they skipped that step and went straight to wireless. And it works. You put one cell tower here, and it can cover an entire village, and you don't need 500 miles of physical wires running down streets. So in those ways, waiting for technology to catch up before taking the first step makes the first step a lot bigger than, I always wonder if trains were invented today, what would be the appropriate gauge of the tracks? Surely the one we just happen to be using isn't the correct width. There's got to be one that's better. Is it skinnier? Is it wide? I don't know. It'd be...
So let's go back to the China invasion of Europe, because I think that's a super good topic. So now, when you and I were young, I was young a lot longer ago than when you were young, but I know it was still true when you were young, is you got around a bunch of other car guys, and you popped your hood to show off your V8 or your super high performance 6 or whatever it happened to be, and you had bragging rights about this car that you just bought and all the things it could or couldn't do. And I haven't changed a bit. I've got, a 300 horsepower Volvo. Anyway, so, I would love, I think, by the way, I suggested this to Elon. It's another one of my suggestions I think you should do. A Model 3 Plaid. I'd be up.
That'd be a Model S killer is what that would be.
Well, it's okay. It's a Model S Plaid. Anyway, so what I want to know is, are all these guys standing around in the booth trying to prove that their Chinese product is better than a Tesla, or that their BMW is better than a Mercedes, and how it's got better range, or all that kind of stuff like we used to do?
No. They really aren't. They're letting the product speak for themselves. They've got information. They will answer questions, but they're just hanging out and letting you, slam the door, see how it sounds, sit there, and all the specs are just out there on display, and you can just check it out. They didn't even have, maybe it's a cultural difference, there were no booth babes. They were instead competent, capable, qualified, the people who you'd want to interview more than photograph. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But even and what was more interesting was the biggest booths there were Ford and Nissan. And nobody was doing test drives. If you want to test drive a Ford Mach-E, go do it. There's no line. There's no waiting. Go hop in. If you want to test drive the Model Y, which they had many of, the line was 40 people, 50 people deep. So the enthusiasm is there more than for Tesla. But so Aura currently has a car on the market called the Funky Cat. It's adorable. It's very cute. It's a happy looking car. But they have another car coming up that they have yet to name. Right now they're just calling it Next. And it is clearly aimed at the Model 3. It is Model 3 shaped and sized. And I asked them about the specs, and they said the specs have not been announced. I said, if I were to guess on the specs, would they be, Model 3? He said, yeah, that's what they'd be. That's a safe guess. I don't know for sure, but yes, that's what they are. So the bragging points for each manufacturer came down to price and looks. They all look different, so it's a matter of taste. And the price is really more strongly correlated with the range than anything else. So that's what they're doing.
So what did you come away from all of that? Was there one particular car that when you left you went, now if I couldn't drive a Tesla, this is probably where I'd go?
No, because they all felt the same. If I could drive that Aura Next, and it was as compelling as a 3, but cheaper, it would be something I would be very interested in if I believed that it would have the longevity and quality of a Model 3.
Right.
But really, it's just a slightly different looking Model 3. A lot of these companies have yet to really put a frunk in a car. A lot of these are electrified gas platforms, which induces a lot of unforced inefficiencies that they could have avoided if they went from the ground up. But in terms of something that really struck me as really compelling, the only one I would say is, I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Morrison. They made vans in England in like the 60s. It was the old kind of funky, cute, like postal vans, milkman vans.
Yes.
Well, a company bought the name, and they're making new ones that look like the old ones, and they're recycled carbon fiber, and they're adorable.
You actually showed that on one of your videos, I believe.
I did.
So if people want to see it, they can go look on Brian's video. He did focus on that one. That was pretty cute. I don't think it would be something I'd want for my own garage.
No. But if you're going to put your logo on the side of something, that's a great showpiece. And it makes a statement more than it makes sense. And it's also not in production yet, so a bit tough to say.
Now, the other thing on Fully Charged, I think you're in my brief conversation that we had about Fully Charged, which unfortunately we were unable to publish as a video because we had issues with Wi-Fi or whatever. One of the things I think you came away from was that most of the booths were populated by folks that wanted to put in charging stations of some kind.
That was by far and away the most common booth was home chargers, destination chargers, business chargers. Let us put in fast chargers for your whatever. And that is where it's at. And how do you differentiate yourself from the next guy? Well, some companies said ours is the cheapest. It's just the cheapest, just buy it. Others said ours is the most beautiful. Well, and that's true. There's an interview I have going up on the 21st with a company called Anderson. And I got to interview the CEO. And what they make is a beautiful wall charger. When the cable retracts, it cleans it. They're 1,300 pounds, not the weight, the price.
The price.
Yeah, the price, not the weight. Wait, this BYD is 30,000 pounds. That's more than a Hummer. No. Never mind. I don't want to spoil it for you, but But what Anderson's ones do, for example, is it runs. There's an API that is run by your utility that tells you what the price is right now, and with their app, you can decide when to charge, and that alone makes their $1,500 charger cheaper than the garbage ones. And it's got, a warranty. It's made. They're available today. I mean, it's a quality product. So how do you differentiate? Well, that's one way. Is if your utility has time of use pricing, you have to get a smart charger.
Yeah.
You have to get something that can tell your car, don't charge now. Wait until it hits my target price.
So we know that in Europe, there's less of an emphasis on home ownership. More people rent. Obviously in China or South Korea or Japan, that's also even more true. So one of the big things that's been talked about for so long is home charging is not possible for people that are living in, 50-story condos or whatever. What were the best solutions you saw for that, and how does that work?
So, to my tremendous surprise, Shell was there. They are no longer a Dutch company. I forget who owns them now, but because that was going to be part of my hook was, of course, the Dutch would be against ocean levels rising. That's kind of their whole thing. They've been at war with the sea for centuries. But Shell has this turnkey solution where they will come to a city. If the city says, please put these in, street lamps used to use, 100, 200, 300 watt sodium lamps. Right. And now they use 40 watt LEDs that do the same trick. That means you've got surplus power. That means you've got more juice there available than you need. So what they do is they put in level 1 chargers, and all they do is they go out, they drill a hole, which is where the plug is going to be, and then they open the little access hatch and just stuff the electronics into it. It takes 90 minutes per location, and now every street lamp in your city can be a charger, which you unlock with your Shell app. The price isn't exciting, because this is a for-profit company trying to make money off energy, as they have forever.
Right.
But you now have a solution, and anywhere you can find one, you could use it. And if the street lamps are on the wrong side of the sidewalk, they've got another solution where they will just poke it under the sidewalk and pop it back up into a stand. That takes more than 90 minutes, of course, but they can still do it. So that's the favorite one I've seen is you can say, if you don't live somewhere where you have off-street parking, you probably have street lamps.
Yeah.
Not enough for everyone, but it is a solution.
Right.
And that's the most interesting one of those that I saw.
All right. Well, Brian, I hate to bring this to a close, but I have more stuff that I want to talk to you about in these next upcoming 3 times. So between now and when Brian comes back, I want you to like what we did today, and then I want you to comment. I really want the comments. What do you think about the European invasion by Chinese-made vehicles? What do you think about charging it through street lamps? Whatever we talked about today. And then follow Brian everywhere he is, Twitter and Patreon and his YouTube channel and all the rest. And then, follow me too, and, hit my Patreon if you will. But you can go to his first and then hit me next. But anyway, Brian, it's always great to have you on. And for those of you who are watching, it's been great talking.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.